Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando has just revealed all 6 of their original haunted houses. They were first revealed last Friday, then there was an announcement on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and finally today. And in this video, I will be breaking them all down. Now, just to let you know, when I say today, I mean that it is Friday, May 24th, when this video is being released. Just so that if you're watching in the future, you're not confused. Anyway, let's get to the originals. I have here the speculation map for HHN 33, and I have placed the logos of all the originals in the confirmed locations. So we're gonna start with my most anticipated and work our way down from there. My most anticipated house is located in Sprung Tent 1, and the name of this house is The Museum, Deadly Exhibits. The blurb for this house that was posted along with the announcement reads, "You decide to visit the new folklore museum exhibit, The Rotting Stone, when an evil escapes from within, destroying everything in its path." That description kind of gives me the vibes of 2 different houses. Catacombs Black Death Rising in 2010 for HHN 20, which I wish I could have found video of, but none appears to exist, and 2016's Tomb of the Ancients, which you are seeing on your screen right now. I think that this house will be similar to these 2 because of the title and the fact that it's a museum, and usually you'll find cursed or just normal artifacts there. Now, where else would you find artifacts? Probably in a catacomb or a temple. So I'm predicting that's going to be a similar atmosphere to one of these 2 houses, and if I had to hedge my bets, I'll say it's more similar to catacombs, since catacombs also had you visiting an exhibit. Either way, I am very, very excited for this house. So, with that out of the way, let's move on to the next house on the list. Moving all the way across the park and temporarily ditching the sprung tents for a soundstage, specifically Soundstage 23, the next house I'm very excited for is Monstruos, the Monsters of Latin America. Now, if this sounds familiar, it's because another HHN got this house very recently. This house was formerly at Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood last year, 2023, but it was known as one of the scariest houses that year. And in this house, you'll face off against 3 famous Latin American monsters. The La Huelpuchi, I know I mispronounced that and I apologize, La Lechuza, and El Cibon. All 3 of these are known monsters in folk legends. The first 2, I'm not going to try to pronounce that first one again because I might butcher it again, are shape-shifting vampires who feast on blood of villagers. And El Cibon is a boy who murdered his father, and his grandfather got revenge by whipping him, rubbing chili pepper in his wounds, and cursing him to walk around with a bag of his father's bones, and he will look to add to those bones. Also, he has a whistle, which if you hear it from far away means he's right behind you, but if you hear it and it sounds like he's coming from behind you, that means he's far away from you. Now, these sound effects and legends were shown in a horrifying light in this house, and I am really looking forward to Orlando's take on it. I hope it's as good as the Hollywood version that you're watching right now. Anyway, with that house done, I think it's time to ditch the soundstage and look at my third most anticipated, which is probably going to be the comedy haunt of this year. This year, Sprung Tent 2 is home to an extremely popular sequel house to something from HHN 28. It's Slaughter Cinema 2. The original Slaughter Cinema was the comedy house in 2018, where you would take a trip to the Cary Drive-In and walk into 8 B-movies from the 80s. And these horror movies were very campy, but also pretty scary. Now, I'm not exactly sure which movies we can expect to see in the sequel house, although I do know one's confirmed, Heavy Metal Hell 3D, which may be similar to a 3D house just for that one segment. I know for a fact that there are films I hope to see represented here. I know I want to see a sequel to Shitty's Kids, and of course, the Yetis. Those Yetis are iconic, and their appearance in the original kicked off a franchise that included 2019's Yeti Terror of the Yukon and last year's Yeti Campground Kills. So really, it would be criminal to not bring the Yetis back for another film. Now we are going to leave this tent and return to a sound stage for another haunt that very much reminds me of Shitty's Kids. Soundstage 24 will be home to a haunted house that appears to be Universal's take on a slasher movie, given the description in the blurb. You're invited to the Barmy triplets' birthday bash, but beware, they celebrate by recreating their family's murders. Prepare for a gory gathering, and the name of this house is Triplets of Terror. Well, this may be kind of a Shitty's Kids from Slaughter Cinema situation. The creators of the event have also said that this is their own take on a slasher, and I've seen speculation online that this could be the replacement to either Five Nights at Freddy's or Nightmare on Elm Street, both of which were rumored for this event and then rumored to have been cut. So, I'm predicting we see a bit of the corny atmosphere that we saw in the Shitty's Kids segment of 2018's Slaughter Cinema, along with some of the scare tactics used in a slasher haunt like Halloween. Now, whether the tactics are used from like the 2014 Halloween, which was actually good and gave you the impression of being stalked and chased by a real serial killer, or if it's more like the 2022 Halloween, where it's just jump scare after jump scare with recycled cue after recycled cue, is yet to be determined. But I'm hoping for either 2014 Halloween vibes from this, or 2016's Texas Chainsaw Massacre house vibes. Now we have 2 houses left, and for this one we're going to one of the new Sprung tents. Dark fantasy has been a genre many HHN fans have wanted the event to dip its toes in for a while now, and last year with Dueling Dragons we got our wish, and now it looks like they're returning to this concept with a new original haunted house in Sprung Tent 3. The description for this is, "Welcome to the Goblin's Feast Tavern and visit the Goblin Village, where a lavish feast is being prepared for goblins, orcs, hobgoblins, and witches. And you're the main course." Now, the name of this haunted house was right there in the description all along. It's Goblin's Feast. This house description sounds quite similar to the description of 2021's Wicked Growth, Realm of the Pumpkin. In this haunted house, you'd walk through a village where all the inhabitants, which are basically like witches and ghosts and stuff, were trying to sacrifice you to bring back the Pumpkin Lord. So I'm expecting it to have kind of the same Halloween-y overall vibe. Slightly cartoonish, slightly more like a homemade haunt, but still quite scary, with loads of fantasy elements. And who knows, maybe we'll see some of the costumes for 2023's Dueling Dragons haunt being recycled. Now, I have higher hopes for this haunt than I did for Wicked Growth, because it seems to be focusing on less monsters and seems to be trying less to be like all the settings like graveyard, village, etc., only focusing on smaller settings like a tavern and part of a goblin village. So I definitely think the scenic will be better and there will be less time wasted on story. Now there's one original left, and it's possibly in the worst location for a haunted house. Right next door to Goblin's Feast, in the Fast and Furious location, we have a prequel haunt to a 2022 Scare Zone. The description for this haunt reads, "You've been invited to chaperone a field trip to a candy factory. The deadly delicious treats turn the kids into sugar-fueled fiends." And if that description sounds familiar, it's pretty much the same as 2022's Sweet Revenge, and this house is Major Sweets Candy Factory. Seeing this as my least anticipated haunted house might be a hot take, but to be honest, I didn't really like the Scare Zone that this is a prequel to. In fact, I found this the weakest part of what was, in my opinion, the weakest year for the event. And that's not a slight against the scare actors. They were doing the best with the material they were given, and they did have good energy, but I just wasn't really feeling it this year. Oh well, it's just my opinion. Besides, I'm pretty sure this haunt will be slightly better than if it is in the Fast and Furious location. I'm hoping that they build a big, elaborate facade and that the smells in this house are top-notch. I'd be disappointed if it's the worst-smelling house of the year. I'm anticipating it to smell like chocolate, maybe some peppermint, and the vibes I'm getting are Willy Wonka-esque. Maybe they'll take some inspiration from the Glasgow experience. Who knows? That would be kind of funny to have like Universal's take on the unknown pop up from behind the wall at you or something. And just to be clear, just because this is my least anticipated haunt of the originals, doesn't mean that it's my least favorite. And I'm still hoping it'll be good. And I am excited for it, and just slightly less excited about this than I am for the others. But it's fine. I'm sure Universal will do a good job with what they've been given. So there you have it. My most anticipated to least anticipated original houses for this year. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid lineup, and I'm looking forward to it. If the houses are done right and the IPs are good, this may tie or even surpass last year for my favorite HHN year. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know your rankings in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with another video. Oh, and I might do another one ranking my top to bottom most anticipated IP haunts when those are released, so stay tuned.